Hello. So, this is gonna be my official roundup of all the books I've read this year. Yeah. Basically, I've been wanting to do this video for a really long time, but I never do it. I don't know if I did it last year or not, but I've been tracking the books I read for the past 3 years, and so I'm like, I should do a video. So, yeah. So this year I read 26 books, which is more than last year, so get it. But I read 26 books and it was 10,000 and a half pages in total. And all of them were fiction. By the way, I use Storygraph, which is like Goodreads but better. It gives you all the stats of all the books that you read this year, and you can organize it by year. It's really fun. So I use Storygraph. But I read 26 books. It was 10,000 and a half pages in total. It was all fiction books because I don't be doing nonfiction. My top genres were young adult, fantasy, and romance. And my top authors, I was about to say artists. My top authors were Jennifer Lynn Barnes, who wrote the Inheritance Games series. Is that true? Yeah, that is true. Who wrote Good Girls Gotta Murder? Girl, I don't know. But it's Jennifer Lynn Barnes, Marissa Meyer, and Rick Riordan, of course. And it was I'm trying to remember the breakdown. 15% of my books were over 500 pages. 73% were between 300 and 500, and then 12% was less than 300. So reading some long books. Yeah. And my average rating overall for the books is 3.72 out of 5, because Storygraph I don't know how Goodreads does it, but Storygraph does it out of 5. So yeah. But basically I was gonna go in order of the books I read throughout the months of the year, but I think instead I'm gonna do it by star rating, just starting with the books I didn't like and then getting to the books I did like. So yeah, so to start with my 1-star books this year, there was only 2, and they were part of the same series, and it was The Cruel Prince and The Wicked King. So there's so much, honestly, so much discourse about this series, because there's some people who love it, and it's a big book talk book, which is why I bought it. The Cruel Prince. I bought The Cruel Prince. I got The Wicked King from the library after hating The Cruel Prince. But I was I'm so excited to get into this. People love it. And I read The Cruel Prince, and it was I just wasn't into it. It was it was too much. It was too much. And then I was I'm gonna give The Wicked King a try, see if now that I'm after the first book, if I really get into the series. And I started The Wicked King, and I'm telling you, I've read the book. I didn't understand a single thing that was happening. It was so bad. And it's partially, I know that's me not understanding. Other people understand it, but I personally hated it. I like fantasy, but I don't like that kind of fantasy. I think it was too much I don't know, dude. It was weird. I don't like it. It was weird. And all the dynamics between let me try to remember the names. Carden? And then there's Locke. The girl, I don't know what the girl's name is. Literally don't know anyone. But she's a spy. But it was so weird. I really hated it. So those are my 1-star reads. Next, for my 2-star books, I have a book by Nora Roberts called Rise of the Magics. And this is part of the book series that my grandmother gave me. And I was really not expecting to like it, because it's very much, they're adult books, like they're not YA. Like it's about a younger girl, but they're just like not written in a YA style. So they're kind of slow and like just very like long and detailed, but it wasn't that bad. Like I know I gave it a 2 out of 5, but like it really wasn't that bad. The second book is definitely my least favorite. It's a trilogy. I don't know what the trilogy's called. It's probably like something like Magics or something. But the first book was pretty good, and the third book was like fine. There was like parts of the third book that I was like, I don't really care, but like there was a lot of parts I did like. The second book was just kind of like, I like the vibes, but I'm not like super interested. So yeah, that's Rise of the Magics. And then my other 2-star book was A Midsummer Night's Dream. Y'all know the one by William Shakes. Yeah, it was just like, it's Shakespeare, you know. Like me out here reading Shakespeare, like I'm like, it's not like great, but it's like required reading, like whatever. But yeah, it was like really, it's a really weird, essentially what happens is like, okay, I don't remember any of the characters' names, but there's like, someone wants to be with someone, but there's like, I don't remember if it's the girl or the boy. But like one of them has like someone who they're trying to be set up with, like with their parents, I think, like an arranged marriage, but they want to be with this other person. But then these like fairies come in and they basically do like a Cupid thing, and they like give them this potion, and then they fall in love with all these different, and it's like a whole mess. It's like really like zany. So those are my 2-star reads. Okay, for my 3-star reads, we've got a bit of, these 3 books are very different from each other. Starting off strong with The Crucible. So I read The Crucible in school, so this is kind of like cheating. Like I didn't really read it on my own or in my own will. I read it against my will, but I gave it a 3 because like it was good, but it like it just makes me mad. Like I'm sorry, like there's this whole thing like reading like classic books that we read in school where it's like, oh, it's just like, it was a different time, like this is just how they do it, and it's like that doesn't mean I have to like it. So everyone in that book is dumb and it makes me mad, so that's why I got a 3 out of 5. But like overall fun, and I support Abigail. Anyway, so that's Crucible. And then From Lukov with Love, I read 2 books about ice skating this year, and From Lukov with Love was one of them, and it was like fine. I'm trying to remember because I also read Icebreaker. I'm trying to differentiate. From Lukov with Love, it's like this girl, I don't remember her name, and Lukov are enemies, but then they have to dance together. Or not, they have to skate together, but they're like both figure skaters. It's a whole thing, but it's 3 out of 5. It's fine. And then Renegades by Marissa Meyer is, I don't know if that's how you say it, Marissa Meyer? Girl, I don't know. But that's my other 3-star. Because, like, the thing about Renegades is I've only read the first book, but I think there's 2 more in the series. And I think if I get into the other 2, I'm gonna like those more. I think it was just, like, Renegades is very long and, like, detailed. Like, it's in depth. It's very, like, description-y. And so that was, like, sort of, like, it was a slow read, but I got into it by the end, and I'm like, I like the plot. Like, I wasn't expecting, it's this whole thing about, like, this girl is part of the Renegade. Which one's the Renegades? Wait. Basically, she's like a villain, and then there's this whole group of like superheroes who are like keeping the city together, but they're like corrupt. And so like she's part of this group trying to stop them. So she goes and like she gets into the superhero team so that she can like get them from the inside. But then she like falls in love with the guy or whatever. And I thought like her joining the superhero team and like pretending to like be in it, like I didn't know that was gonna happen. I thought it was really funny. So I like it. But the end of the book, I'm like, I don't know where the rest of the books are gonna go, so I'll let you know when I read the rest of the books if I like it or not. But yeah, I think, oh wait, Nova, that's her name. Nova and Adrian. That literally just like I pulled that out of my head. It's because I made a playlist. I made a playlist for Nova and Adrian. So like I liked it and I liked their dynamic. But there's this whole like subplot that like comes back in the end about like her family's evil, and I'm like, I don't really care. I just want to see her being a superhero. Anyway, that's my 3-star read. Okay, next we have my 3.5-star reads. We're really getting into the nitty-gritty of half stars here. So my first 3.5 was Icebreaker, which is essentially the same book as From Lukov with Love, but I rated it half a star higher because From Lukov with Love was just kind of boring, and Icebreaker was less boring. Icebreaker is about a figure skater and a hockey player, though, so big difference there. Big difference. I think I loved in Icebreaker, there's more of a like group ensemble piece to it, more than just the two people. So I think I liked that more. So yeah. The second 3.5-star read was Scarlet from the Lunar Chronicles. I still have not finished the Lunar Chronicles because so I read Cinder and Scarlet, which are the first and second book, and then I don't remember. I think there's 5 books in the series, if I'm not mistaken. But there's like a novella in there somewhere. Basically, I went to the library and I got the wrong book. Like, I got number 4 or something before I got 3. So, like, I obviously wasn't gonna read number 4 first. And so I just, like, stopped. So I just never finished it. But I have Winter, which I'm pretty sure is the last book. So, like, I'm gonna get there eventually. It just hasn't happened yet. But I'm gonna circle back. But yeah, Scarlet is the second book, and I will say it's worse than the first one, but it's not as bad as I heard some people saying it was. I'm trying to remember what happened. I can't remember the end of the book, but it's about basically the whole thing with the Lunar Chronicles is it's like retellings of classic fairy tales. So like Cinder is based off of Cinderella, Scarlet is based off of Little Red Riding Hood. Yeah, because there's like a whole thing with a wolf and like a mafia sort of vibe, and her grandmother goes missing. Oh, it's coming back. Her grandmother goes missing. Basically, it's like this whole thing. And there's like, it's like pretty separate from the first book, but there's some connections. You know what I'm saying? Basically, the second book, it wasn't that bad. Like, I gave it a 3.5 because it was good, just wasn't as good as the first one. So yeah. And then the third one is Of Blood and Bone by Nora Roberts. Oh my gosh. I'm actually trying to remember right now. Is this the second or the third book? I actually have no clue. I feel like this is the second book. I think the book that I rated lower was the last book, and this is the second book in the series. Clearly didn't strike a chord with me that much, but I'm pretty sure Of Blood and Bone is the second book, where I don't know her name. No, I do. Lana? Her name's literally like Lana Swift or something. which is like crazy. No, I think that's the mom. What's her name? I don't know what the girl's name is, but she's like out in the woods training. I think that's what this book is. I have no clue. We're gonna move on because I don't know. So I don't know why I rated this next book this way, but I have one single 3.75 star book. Like, we don't need to be doing all that. But my 3 3/4 star book is Will Grayson by John Green. I have a story about this book. So I got this from a bookstore. I bought it and I saw that it was John Green, and I like heard the title and I was like, I just want to read a John Green book, but I knew nothing about it. And so like I read the back of the book and it was like, okay, these two kids, both named Will Grayson, meet, and then like this whole adventure ensues. And so basically, spoiler alert, the format of the book is it's just like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. Like there's no titles, there's no like labels or anything, but some of the chapters have capitalization and some of them are in all lowercase, and that's the differentiation between the two POVs of the two Will Graysons. And no one told me that, so I read the first 8 chapters, which is like 100 pages of this book, thinking that it was just like one dude named Will Grayson that I was reading from, and I was like, I can't wait to meet this other Will Grayson, like can't wait to see what's happening. And like literally the two characters are so different, but I thought they were one person. I was so confused because like I wasn't looking at the capitalization. I didn't even notice that like some of the chapters were in all lowercase. Like I didn't know. So other than the fact that I read the entire first third of this book thinking that it was all one person, I did enjoy it. It was goofy. It was very like my taste. So that's Will Grayson. Okay, on to the 4-star books. I have 9 books that I gave 4 stars, and these are sort of like great books, but like aren't 5 stars because they're just like not completely 5 stars, but they're still just like really, really good books. You know, that's sort of where I put my 4 stars. So yeah. So first of all, The Lightning Thief, which obviously is a reread. Pretty sure this is the only reread I did this year, so that's interesting. But reread The Lightning Thief. Obviously y'all know my thoughts on The Lightning Thief. I do not need to talk about it again, but yeah, gave it 4 stars. And then Little Women, which I actually just finished yesterday. I gave it 4 stars, and it's just so good. There's like some chapters where I'm like, I don't really care, which is why it's not like 5 stars. But it's so sweet. And it's like, I can't actually get into it, but I love Little Women. And then we have Simon vs. Homo Sapiens Agenda. Actually, that was a reread too, so I did 2 rereads this year. But the first time I read the book, it was either like a library copy or I got it online or something. But I actually bought my own copy of the book this year, and so I like reread it for that purpose, to annotate my own copy. So yeah, obviously love it. Book's better than the movie. Sorry, vibes. It's like actually so me. Like it's actually so me. Like it's crazy. So yeah. And then Chalice of the Gods. Chalice of the Gods. Honestly, if I were to rate it now, I'd probably say like 4.5, but like I rated it 4 at that time, so whatever. Chalice of the Gods is so good. It was so nice to just get into the back like classic Percy Jackson vibe. The thing is, it's nothing crazy. Like it's a very much like, I don't know how to explain it. Like it's like The Lightning Thief in a way, where it's like, oh, but the end, I was gonna say like they're not really like life-threatening that much, but the end was pretty life-threatening. The end of that book, with him fighting old age, like the whole message. Rick, you ate with that one. It's so good. So yeah, I love Chalice. The fifth book is Cinder, which I've already kind of spoken about. Cinder being the first book in the Lunar Chronicles. This one eats. It's basically about this girl named Cinder who's like half cyborg. It's not like cyborg. I guess it's kind of. She has like, I honestly don't remember if it's like her hand or her foot, but she's got some sort of like animatronic part of her. And it's the whole thing. It's a retelling of Cinderella, and it's like there's a ball, and so she's going in, and like the prince falls in love with her and all this stuff. But there's also like this subplot of like there's this plague in their area, and she's like trying to find a cure to the plague because it's like, I won't spoil it, but it's like a whole thing that she's like connected to it, whatever. So yeah, love Cinder. Then we have, okay, I'm gonna get the names right, The Final Gambit and the Hawthorne Legacy, that's what it's called. So The Final Gambit and the Hawthorne Legacy are the third and second book in the Inheritance game series, which I love and read for the first time this year. And these two books, like, they're good, and I literally read them in like 2 days, like combined. Like, I read them in 2 days. Like, I read them in a day each. I honestly don't know what happened in one book versus the other, but I know they were good. If there's anything I can tell you, is that they were good. So, yeah. Good stuff. I literally don't remember what happened. Anyway. My other 4-star read was The First to Die at the End, which is a sequel to They Both Die at the End, which I read in 2020. I read it literally as the ball dropped on 2020 New Year's Eve, so like 2020, 2021. But yeah, They Both Die at the End kind of got mixed reactions. Like, it's kind of like a book talk book, and so some people love it, but like I've heard a lot of people who did not like it. But I personally did like it. But The First to Die at the End, which is the book I read this year, is better. Like, I will say it's better than the first one. It's got more of like, I understand, like, with They Both Die at the End, it's sort of just these two people meet and then they do a bunch of things together. So it feels a bit like it's more of just like a reading about their adventure rather than like a theme. I don't know how to explain it, but like The First to Die at the End has like an overarching like plot to it rather than just like events happening, if that makes sense. So I definitely love First to Die at the End, and if you didn't like the first one, read the second one because the second one's better, and I think people would like the second one a lot more. And oh, I just remembered. So the whole gag of The First to Die at the End is that in They Both Die at the End, there's this whole thing called Deathcast where it's like you get a phone call on the day that you're gonna die, and they're like, you're gonna die today, and that it's like 7 years after it has been established. But The First to Die at the End takes place on the night that Deathcast was like first established, and it's about, I don't remember which one of them it was, but one of the main dudes gets the call, and he's like the first person to receive a Deathcast call that he's gonna die that day. It's so good. And there's also like this taking like 7 years before the story in They Both Die at the End. We get to see younger versions of Mateo and Rufus from They Both Die at the End, and we get to see them being like little kids, and it's so horrible because like we know what happens to them in the first book, you know what I mean? And so they really, like, if you want to cry, read this book. That's all I'll say. So yeah, it's really good. Okay, I lied. That's all of my 4-star books. The other book that had my 4 stars is not a 4 star, it's a 5. So that's all. Okay. So 7 of the books I read this year, I gave 5 stars, and I absolutely love these books so much. So I'm gonna start off with I Kissed Shara Wheeler, because this might be my favorite book of all time. Like, I read it, honestly, no clue when. I feel like it was during summer, but it might not have been. I read it at some point. No, actually, I think it was during school. I read it sometime earlier in the year, and it's so good. Like, I can't even give you, like, specific reasons as to why it's so good. It's basically, like, Paper Towns, like, that kind of vibe. Like, this girl runs away. It's so good. And then, okay, this girl named Shara Wheeler, she runs away. And then there's this girl named Chloe Green, a dude, oh my god, it starts with an R. What's his name? I don't know. And then, okay, there's like, it's Chloe Green, and then like this boy who's like an artsy like skater boy, and then there's like a football player. And I feel like his name starts with a C. But I've honestly I don't remember. But basically, all 3 of them are like looking for Shara. And it's like this whole thing, and it's so like coming of age, Paper Towns, like it's so good and it's so sweet. And it's by Casey McQuiston, who we know and love, author of Red, White, and Royal Blue, author of One Last Stop, like eat up. And I've read I own all of their books, all 3, and I Kissed Shara Wheeler is definitely my favorite. So yeah, I just love that book. I feel like I have a video on it. Maybe I don't. But you just gotta read it. It's so good. So I Kissed Shara Wheeler, and then Daisy Jones and the Six. Because the Daisy Jones and the Six show came out this year. And so I know it was like a month before the show was gonna come out. So like February. And I got the book because I was like, okay. Like, I didn't want to be like rushed. And so I was like, I have a whole month to like at some point read Daisy Jones and the Six. And so I started reading it that night, literally finished it within 24 hours. Like, I gave myself a month. I finished it in a day. So that goes to show how good it is. That's obviously Taylor Jenkins Reid, who I love now. So I like Daisy Jones and the Six was I think the first book that I read of hers. I don't know when I read Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but I've read it and I own that one. And I just got Malibu Rising for Christmas. So I'm going on my 3rd Taylor Jenkins Reid book. They're just so good. And like they're like fast paced and they're like interesting. They got plot twists. It's all this stuff. And I love the format of Daisy Jones and the Six because it's like basically like an interview where they're like reflecting on their past. Like it's so good. Yeah. And I also will say the show is great. Like they did really good in the show. So yeah. I was literally just listening to the album yesterday. Fire. And then in May I read The Sun and the Star, which by Rick Riordan, of course. I also have a video on this book, so I won't go too deep into it here, but like so good. Maybe one of the best books that Rick has ever written, other than Mark of Athena. And yeah, like the themes are theming, the message is messaging, you know, like it's so good. And as someone who's like the resident like Nico D'Angelo stan, like call it fan service, but like I literally need 25 more Nico D'Angelo centered books. Yeah, it's so good. Okay, so now those are the 3 like standalone 5-star books I read this year, but then I have 2 books from like 2 separate series that are my 5 stars. So since I already talked about the Inheritance Games, I'll start with that. So book 1 and 4 in Inheritance Games are in my top 5. What am I saying? Are in my 5-star books. So the Inheritance Games title book, and then the Brothers Hawthorne, those are my 2 5-stars. They are so good. So the Inheritance Games I got for Christmas a while ago, but I just read it in like March or April of this year and like loved it so much, and so I immediately read the other 2 books, read them so fast. And then the Brothers Hawthorne came out in like August of this year, and like as soon as I could get my hands on it, I read it. And like, dude, it's just so good. It's so like, it's quick paced, it's engaging, all the characters are so fun. I love a little like rich family drama. Yeah. I've made a video on the Brothers Hawthorne, so you know, I already talked about that. But it's just so good. And I love a little like trap. I love a little trap, I love a little trick, a little mystery. So yeah. The whole series is so good. I'm trying to think. So like the Inheritance Games and the Hawthorne Legacy and the Final Gambit, it's like it's a 4-book series, but those 3 really feel like a trilogy, because it's all from, what's her name? Dude, I can't remember anyone's names. Avery. They're all from Avery's perspectives. But then the Brothers Hawthorne, first of all, it's much larger than the other books, so that already makes it feel like different. But it's also in a split POV between Jameson and Grayson. And Avery is honestly like, I guess she's not a background character, but she's like not as much as the focus. But there's some crazy twists and turns, is all I'll say. And it's really good. If you like Knives Out, you should read those books, because it's literally the first book is Knives Out. Like, I don't know which came first, the book or Knives Out, but they're literally the same thing. So, whatever. But yeah. And then my other 2 5-star books are, of course, from the, what's it called? A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series. And now I do have like an hour and a half long video completely just talking about the entire plot of all 3 of these books, but you know, why not do it again? Because it's been a while. I guess it hasn't been that long. I read it at the end of summer, so I've had time to reflect and really calm it down. I will say, like, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, I'm pretty sure I also rated that 5 stars, but I didn't read it this year. Technically, it was like last summer that I read it. This is my thing with like with A Good Girl's Guide to Murder and with the One of Us is Lying series. Like, I read the first book and it's such like a contained thing, and it doesn't really leave that many like questions unanswered, that I'm just like, I don't want to read the rest of the books, because like, what if they mess it up? And so I took the risk this year to read Good Girl Bad Blood, which is the 2nd book, and I was shocked and surprised because I loved it. It basically, so in the first book, basically she's like doing this school project and she chooses to like solve this murder case as her project, and it just like gets so crazy and she solves it in the end. And in the 2nd book, she starts a little like murder mystery podcast talking about how she solved that murder, and then a kid in her town goes missing, and the family of the kid is like, Avery, you gotta help us, because you're like the criminal solver here in town, because the police don't do anything. And so she's like, no, I don't want to get back into that, but then she does, and she solves this other mystery, and that's so good. So that's Good Girl Bad Blood, and it's like the way the mystery unfolds is so good. Anyway, and then so like that's all wrapped up, and then we get into Good as Dead, which is the third and final book. And, you know, you're expecting there to be another, like, murder mystery case, but, spoiler alert, this book is literally about her being kidnapped. Because she's, like, out here solving all these crimes, like, exposing all this stuff. And so this, like, famous, like, serial killer in her town kidnaps her, and she, you know, being Pip, being super smart, she, like, figures out how to, like, escape, and she kills the serial killer. And then the whole book from that point on is literally just her and Ravi, like, covering up this murder and blaming it on the town rapist. Like sign me up. Like, it's so good. And, like, I feel like it was such a bold move for the third book to, like, not be just, like, another, like, a bigger case that she solves or whatever, for it to be a completely different thing. And it gets so dark. Like, it's literally, like, her inner monologue as she's solving and, like, figuring out how to not, like, be killed by this man. And then she kills him, and then it's, like, all her knowledge and stuff, it's her covering up the murder. And then it's literally A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Like, it's so good. It's so good. And after, if you've read the third book, you know how it ends. I remember it so vividly because it was during band camp. And I literally, like, could not function because I was just thinking about that book. It's so good. I was like, I can't believe it ends that way. And, like, I would have to go to band camp, and I was like, I don't want to stop reading. Like, it was so funny. But yeah, that really affected me for a while after that. It's so good. So yeah, I love a murder mystery. Okay, so those are my books I read this year. Had some good ones, and my goal this year is to read more. I say that every year, but my goal is to beat my number every year. Maybe I'll go for 30 this year, because that would be like, oh, I can't do math. What's 30 divided by 12? It's like 3. It's like less than 3 books a month. Boom. I got it. And with summer, like, I got it. I got it. Yeah. Anyway. That's all.